Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. XDefiant is finally here, and today I wanted to run through all the best settings you want to be using across the board, whether you're playing on console or PC, keyboard and mouse controller, whatever the case may be. I want to run through everything for you guys so you know exactly what to select where for all your settings you need to be adjusting. So diving right in, of course, first things first, you open up the main menu, you have all your settings available right away. Now I'm playing on PC, so of course I'm going to have some extra options in places like video and graphics, but for the most part, whether you're playing on console or PC, whatever input it may be, you're going to see the same core settings you want to be adjusting across the board. So for gameplay and UI, personally, I'm a controller player. If your keyboard and mouse, will run through some of the things you might want to look out for there in just a moment, but set your gameplay input to obviously whatever you need. I'm still a max FOV kind of player. For most people though, unless you are all about the movement and you're used to the 120 FOV and the feel of that, anywhere between 100 and 110 is typically that sweet spot. For ADS field of view, I do go for consistent. This means that low zoom ADS matches your custom field of view settings. So when I ADS, it's not going to be too crazy zoomed in. It's going to be more consistent with my 120 FOV. I do use ADS behavior as hold, pretty standard there, and an instant sensitivity transition with all my ADS sensitivities. I don't allow myself to melee during ADS just in case, I accidentally tap a button or something. I don't want that to interrupt me on accident. So this just means I don't have to ever worry about that happening. However, aiming will interrupt my reload if I need to cancel that. That obviously allows me to have extra power and extra control over that. And that is actually really, really clutch. Toggle for crouch behavior, very straightforward. Tap for sprint behavior. Auto sprint you can honestly have on or off. It depends on how much you want to use your thumbstick here. Having this on and having this auto sprint threshold, dropping this down to essentially 0 means that the second you start moving your thumbstick at all, you're gonna start auto sprinting. If you want that in your game, similar to like auto tac sprint in COD, for instance, you could absolutely do that as well. Sprint interrupt reload, if you want this on as well, you could absolutely turn that on and have even more control of what you're doing with your reloads there. But keep in mind, if you're trying to reload and you have auto sprint on, that'll then interrupt you, so that could be a little bit obnoxious there. Slide behavior I have on tap, obviously want to have that as easy as can be. Auto reload weapon, I would have this off when your magazine is empty, just so the game doesn't interrupt anything in specific. You're in manual control of when you want to reload and when you don't. Auto switch weapon when it's out of ammo, again, sort of a preference based thing. Personally, I like to have that off. Auto grab ledge, not a fan of that. I want to be in control, and sometimes you can do this in situations where you don't want to be grabbing ledges and then you end up mantling over and it's just not a great situation. So again, I keep that off as well. Walk behaviors on hold, scoreboard behavior on hold. Then we get into some of the HUD things here. So challenge notifications, nice to have those on so you know exactly what's going on. Of course, damage numbers I like to have on just purely for the aesthetic, but that's more of a preference based thing. Same deal with health bars. You can turn this on and off as you please. It just depends on what you enjoy seeing on your screen. It's nice to get the information there though to sort of reaffirm what you're doing in game. Minimap rotation on or off is more of a preference based thing at the end of the day. Distance units, you could have this in meters or yards, whatever you're the most comfortable with. COD players, you'll probably be used to meters for the most part. I like to have my FPS displayed up in the top left. That's obviously going to be a main thing for PC. Ping display, if you want to have your ping shown to whatever server you're on, keep that on. Network display you can turn on if you need. Same deal with any of the stuff going on there, but for the most part, pretty straightforward, and a lot of the UI stuff here is going to be preference based. We then get into mouse and keyboard, and quite frankly, for a lot of these specific settings here like sensitivity and then all of your keybinds and whatnot, this is all personal preference. Some players like to play on a low in-game sensitivity but then a higher DPI, or vice versa. Some players like to have awkward keybinds or something that fits their playstyle and what's comfortable for their hands and whatnot. So there's nothing here for keyboard and mouse that's specifically the best across the board. It's really going to come down to what you're comfortable with and what your preferences are for your keyboard and mouse setup. Controller, on the other hand, a little bit different. There's ways to optimize this a little bit more. So button layout for me, I use brawler. This is essentially the equivalent of tactical over in Call of Duty. So that is something that I'm personally very familiar with here. I keep my stick layout as default though across the board. Standard aim assist here, it's obviously disabled or standard, and you're going to want to have it on if you're a controller player, of course. The strength I don't adjust whatsoever there. Aim response curve type, I've messed around a lot with linear, with standard, and with reverse S curve, and I found the most snappy and I guess aggressive, I don't know if that's the right terminology, but the most consistent for me was reverse S curve, especially when you are playing a lot more aggressive in game, pushing close range gunfights, and that aim assist might be a little bit more noticeable. S curve to me was what I found to be the most consistent. Sensitivity, I like a nice medium ground here, 40 to 50 and then 35 to maybe 45. I like to stagger mine just like I do in COD as well. That to me is going to be the most consistent. but this is about fine-tuning it for you. Some players like a really high sense, so start high, and if it's too fast, lower it until you're comfortable, or vice versa. Start low, up it until it's too uncomfortable, and drop it down some to find that nice middle ground. You want something generally in the middle. If you're too fast, then long-range gunfights are going to be too difficult to track. If it's too slow, close range gunfights are going to be too difficult to track. So somewhere in the middle there is going to be ideal. As I mentioned earlier, I do like some custom zoom sensitivities. So for my low zoom optics, I like a 0.92, just drops it down so I can be a little bit more precise there. Then on my high zoom, I'd keep it just a little bit higher as well, like a 0.95 or so. That way when I'm super zoomed in, I can still move as much as I need to, but I'm still a little bit more precise there. Dead zone left stick and right stick. Unfortunately, there's no specific test in here, so you're going to have to adjust this value based on how much stick drift you might have. So it's just going to be controller dependent there. There is no universal best dead zone, so just definitely keep that in mind. Acceleration speed I keep on 1. I don't invert anything. That's not my jam whatsoever, and I do keep vibration off purely because I don't want my controller shaking or anything when I'm obviously trying to be super accurate. And by the way, as we are going through all the settings here today, if you guys enjoy the video, do me a favor, drop a like. Hopefully it does help you out, and also if you are new to the channel or you simply have not subscribed yet, you want to guarantee you are up to date with everything going on, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. Next up here, when it comes to audio, there's a few things you want to look out for. So main volume, obviously you could have this at whatever volume max you want. Just make sure you're not blowing out your ears or anything like that. Make sure it's comfortable for you. Dialogue volume will be decently important here. So this is when I would have a little bit higher, probably upwards of, 50, 60, 70, somewhere in that distance there. SFX volume is going to be the most important though. This will be footsteps, gunfire, give you that directional audio. This is when I'd keep all the way maxed out. UI volume for your menu and everything, this stuff doesn't really matter all that much. And then music ultimately is not going to give you any valuable information in game, so you can turn this off entirely if you want, just to make your life a little bit easier there. Mute audio and minimized, feel free to do that if you're on PC. If you want voice chat on, you can obviously put that on and use whatever you want there. Just totally preference, not important whatsoever though at the end of the day with that. We then get into our video and our graphics settings. So usually I would recommend playing in full screen mode. If you are on PC, that's where you're going to get the best FPS. I'm just in windowed full screen right now, so I can record this video and easily tab out when I need. But full screen is obviously where you want to play the vast majority of the time. Make sure your display and your refresh rate, your resolution and whatnot there is set to what your monitor is supposed to be. Personally, I got a pretty solid PC here, 13900K, a 4090, so my settings are going to be a lot higher than what most players probably would be using for optimal FPS. The vast majority of things you're going to want to set here are going to be dependent on what your PC specs are and what your PC can handle. So for a lot of these, there's not going to be specific, hey, absolutely use this or turn this to high every time or turn this to low every time. It's going to be dependent on what your system can run. So just bear that in mind. Now, triple buffering, keep in mind, this is going to actually improve your frame rate, but it adds in input latency. So for that reason, that's something you definitely want to turn off there across the board and apply those settings. Reduced latency, always nice to have in. It might cause lower frames, but if you have a decent computer, this game doesn't take much to run at decent frames. You want to turn that on, obviously. Reflex low latency is going to depend a bit more on your setup. Again, if you are GPU locked or CPU locked there, you're going to have to adjust that to on or on plus boost accordingly. Brightness and contrast, adjust as you need there for whatever you have going on with your monitor. DX12 renderer, personally, I have off on this, and then I don't use HDR or anything there. Then custom graphics, I have across the board so I can get the most out of my game. So VSync, you don't want on, it obviously increases input lag. Frame rate limit, you could turn this to max out at your monitor rate so you don't have any screen tearing or anything like that, but it's totally up to you. Shadow quality, I keep on high. Obviously, it's nice to see shadows that can sometimes give off enemy positions and whatnot, so having these on and noticeable to me is pretty important. Spot shadows, I also keep on high. Just purely for the aesthetic here, the resolution I have on ultra, but it's probably not necessary to have it all the way up there. You could easily have this on medium or high if you want some better frames. Contact shadows, also keep this on high personally, but for better frames, again, you could keep this all low, sun low, or completely off if you wanted to. Resolution scale, definitely keep that on 100. I like the sharp look of the game, so I keep that on 10. Particle detail for better frames, obviously go around medium or low. If you like the game to look better, higher ultra there for frames. Volumetric fog, again, better frames, definitely put that on low, not super important there across the board. Global reflection, better frames, medium or low, better look, high, I'd opt for somewhere in the medium there. Reflection quality, definitely turn this on low or off if you want the better frames, but then also sometimes with water or things like that, having this off is going to make the players easier to see with glass and with windows and stuff like that. So that's something you might want to pay attention to in game, just for purely a point of having better visibility on enemy players in game. Vegetation, if you want it to look good, go for high, obviously. And if you want the better FPS, go for low. It's not going to make a huge difference in your ability to see the the leaves and the bushes and everything. If that's what's determining your level of enjoyment on the game, I guess more power to you, but low obviously for that, per usual. Subsurface scattering, I do keep on. Ambient occlusion, you can keep on very high. You can keep on high if you want the better looks of the game, but again, for frames, low, medium, per usual there as well. Object detail, I keep right in the middle at about 58. Extra streaming distance, longer object distance streaming uses more memory, so depending on your RAM and how much RAM you have available on your PC, you're gonna adjust that accordingly. I have overkill 64 gigs, so I can have this a little bit higher. Lens flare, I keep on off. I don't want things obstructing my view, so obviously that's not going to be ideal. Water quality, better frames, you could drop to low if you want. Chromatic abrasion, I do keep on for certain elements. Terrain, low for higher frames, medium or high for some better looks there as well. So it's pretty straightforward when it comes to your general graphic settings here. If you want better frames, opt for medium and low. If you want a better looking game at the cost of frames, medium to high and above. Language and accessibility stuff is not going to be super important here. You can adjust the colorblind settings here if you need. It's obviously going to make things a little bit easier to see if you do have any amount of color blindness there. You can adjust the flashbang effect if you want a dark flashbang versus a bright white one that obviously makes your screen go blind and is actually annoying to look to. You could have the dark one. I personally can't do dark flashbangs because when I get hit by them, it makes me think my game crashes and it, freaks me out. So I just keep it on bright, but you can adjust that and that's nice to see for sure. Everything else here is pretty much just preference. You don't really have to worry too much about that. And then matchmaking in the account, really cool here. If you don't want to play crossplay, if you're on console, you don't want to play PC, you can turn crossplay off. Same deal with input-based matchmaking. If you play keyboard and mouse, you don't want to play against controllers and aim assist, you can turn that off. That's awesome, and I love the fact that they have these available. So yeah, those are the general settings you want to be on the lookout for here, just across the board, what I think is best in certain areas, what's recommended in others. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It's always really appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your post notifications on the way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.